Welcome back, my dear viewer, in the Unscrambled Manifesto of Africa. Today we are going to talk about poverty, as it is written in my book. I have had a great difficulty in engaging this perpetual poetry of the poor. Not that I haven't encountered with it firsthand, face to face, or for a great period of my life found my feet trailing its tracks. It's just that there is a mystical overt fear in engaging in a discourse involving this vicious bug. To elucidate this, my friend tells me that poverty is like an electrified chain around someone's ankle. If you try to pull so hard, it sends an electric shock that not only numbs your nerves, but diminishes your guts to try again. However, if by a mixture of luck, fate, and slow but consistent efforts it comes off, from then on you have to run as fast as your heels can take you so that this shackle never gets hold of you again, because a second time is terrifying. Indeed, this is proof of how a great tormentor of humanity poverty is, and even to pry inquisitively at its origin is like being laid on a pyre when one is still alive. Of the mystical and ancient origins of poverty, I may not be well versed, but I can assent with a high degree of confidence that poverty levels are significantly very high in countries where citizens treat the voter's box as a treasure trove. Over and over again, millions fall prey to it. In fact, poverty-laden nations are voting nations. The more devout one is a voter, the more he or she is dancing with poverty. Even in Kenya, we are the best of the best. Barely a year after an election, we will be reminded by our puppet governments why we should anticipate the next election in 5 years' time. Every day of that period, and how they promise it shall be scintillating and electrifying, and if they discover that we have gotten bored of their vanity rhetoric, they craft a cunning way of bringing up a referendum question to keep electioneering alive. Farmers can be denied 3.5 billion of their dues after delivering their produce and waiting for an entire year, but the Electoral Commission can be given in excessive funds to the tune of over 10 billion to misappropriate and make sure that the electoral process is as mystical and mischievous as possible. This type of scenario proves where our priority lies. The president can't gather his guts to veto matters of delayed payment on behalf of farmers, and yet he still falls wanting of taking decisive action like releasing other funds so that these farmers do not suffer while the audit is done. Even so, he is very prompt in releasing extra funds to the Electoral Commission to conduct a repeat election after one was nullified and these funds were misappropriated with the same ease and speed that they were remitted. Voting is our enough rope handed to us by our colonial masters so that we can hang ourselves as fools. We need to seal the paw and always nearly sinks our ship every time elections are carried out. This boiling pot full of rot needs to be taken off the fire, and we should stop toying around with this beloved pet and opt for a novel system made in Africa that shall yet work and set things right, where people should feel obliged to vote and mobilize alongside trivial reasons. Everyone who votes and one who doesn't can have a guarantee that the systems will work. If a young man wants to better his great-grandfather's record of having 3 wives and 21 children, then that man is bound and condemned to eternal poverty, seeing that he lacks of an equal estate as his great-grandfather had, since the land has been severely subdivided. What is the solution for this? Mostly though, poverty is inherited, something we cannot blame the parties involved, but bolstered by careless voting or putting trust on insincere leadership. I am also not naive to deny that the word of cause and effect also applies. Most of these people have reckless decisions that obliterate any ounce of hope of escaping the vicious cycle of poverty. Some squander the little they get on strong spirits, alcohol, which in turn inter their bodies and lead to sickness or low energy, and thus they cannot perform optimally to guarantee a stable income for their families. Others are obsessed with misleading philosophies of life. They overglorify luck, divine providence, and cunning craft to get their way on hold of riches. The begging mentality may be entrenched deeply in their hearts. Believe you me, even if a beggar could collect 2,000 shillings a day, translating to 60,000 shillings per month, they would still beg, and they would procrastinate to either save or invest the money, since the means of influx, hereby begging, is a way too easy for them. But is begging easy? In my days in the church ministry, I remember how hard it felt when youngsters were handed contribution cards to fundraise for a church project. Most would prefer not doing it and instead donate the minimum agreed amount from their personal kitty alone. However, this could not always work for long, especially when the turbulent economic times hit hard. With a lot of restraint, I fundraised by calling as many friends in my phone book and taking a plea to them to sponsor me with some cash. I tried not to exhaust the list with careful selection, and I was able to collect a substantial amount from the donation of the willing and help the youth project. One thing though, I did also find that most people in the churches did not want to get involved in leadership or in handling of money, contrary to the outside reality where everyone dreams about to be a leader and especially head the finance docket. Why is that? You see, Africa can be self-ruled for 100 or 1,000 of years, but as long as she still has an affinity for corrupt leadership, she will never take flight. Insecurity, poverty, diseases, abuses, regret, disillusionment, melancholy, and so forth shall forever be her portion. She lacks not resources. In fact, she supplies a significant lot. She lacks not brains. In fact, she exports them in bulk. She lacks not muscles. In fact, none can match the ebony build. She lacks not the philosophy and the history of greatness. Remember the ancient civilization like the Egypt. She lacks not culture, yet she is poverty stricken. Thank you very much.